Hey, welcome back to the Honda Spree build. Um, I've been pretty busy since the last video came out, ordering parts and slapping some stuff together, and finally we get to see it all go together. In the previous video, I alluded to how excited I was about this Honda Spree having a Honda Metropolitan stem adapted to it. So you'll see that uh, I I just couldn't help myself. I already went ahead and purchased a front end. A guy on one of the scooter forums had some parts off of his modified Spree, and I really couldn't pass it up. If you go on YouTube and look up Pedo Bread, that's the name of his channel. He has a full build series on a Spree that included this front end that I purchased from him, as well as some like Dios and Typhoon. Basically, if it's a two-stroke, he's into it. Anyways, so I I just as soon as I bought this Spree, I knew that I really needed a disc brake front end for it, so the timing worked out perfectly. And it went pretty smoothly. You will see a couple attempts here of how I learned not or how not to do it. We'll say it that way. But at least it coming um, apart was pretty easy. Just one big bolt for the axle, the whole wheel and hub slides right out, and then a couple of four bolts. The shocks slide right out, and the new NCY forks slide right in. Um, so in the past, I've built a couple supermotos. It's basically just a dirt bike with 17-inch wheels, big brakes, um, maybe some suspension work, hopefully, and like road tires. So in the past with supermoto builds, um, I would do what you're seeing here. I would actually put the put the rotor on loosely so that you can slide the caliper on. With a big brake kit on a 17-inch supermoto wheel, they don't you can't put the caliper on while the rotor is completely secured to the hub. So you have to loosen up the rotor, slide the caliper on, and then tighten the rotor back down to the hub. I thought it would be a similar deal with this because that rotor is 220 millimeters. It's pretty massive for a 10-inch wheel. And I thought that I was smart by just doing the same thing. Loosely uh, having the rotor put on, slide the caliper on, tighten it, and then throw it in the forks, just like I would, a supermoto. Well, there's one attempt to where it didn't work. And we're going to see my second attempt didn't exactly work out either. Um, yeah, so long story short, if there's anything to gain from watching this video, if you're building a scooter with an aftermarket front end on it, do yourself a massive favor. Do what I did on my third attempt. Build the entire thing, you know, forks included, off of it, and then slide it all together as one assembly. For the four bolts that it takes to throw it together, um, it's just makes a lot more sense. So yeah, us talk about the front end here. The forks obviously are NCY. Um, the wheel is a Kitico Monkey, or basically like a Z50 aftermarket wheel, and a Monkey hub. The rotor is 220 millimeter. I think it's NCY, um, as is the caliper bracket. The caliper itself is off of a Piaggio Typhoon, but it's basically like a Brembo twin piston, um, and a stainless steel braided line. So the only thing I really had to add here was a master cylinder, which I just so happen to have. I just used a stock uh, Yamaha Bug-Eye master cylinder. So when I threw it together, I was trying to figure out why there was like some sort of like binding going on. It didn't feel right. I knew this came off of a riding spree, so I figured there was something lost in translation that I was doing wrong. You can see I'm checking the three rotor bolts to see if maybe those were sticking and um, hitting something. I just had to grab my amazing little flashlight here. It turns out that one of the mounting bolts for the caliper was long. I don't know where I got it from, but I also happen to have um, a bracket from a part scooter, the same bolt pattern. So I just threw that in there, and it was enough to space it out, so I wouldn't get that binding. Magic. Um, so yeah, it is number one as far as like visual appearance goes. It's really nice looking. It really stands out, and it makes it backs up the performance that is built into the motor. This thing goes pretty good, and it stops really well too. I have a lot of confidence in it over the standard Metropolitan drum brake. Um, so yeah, it was maybe an hour or two of just fuddling around with it and wasting some time on how to not install it. Um, but yeah, it looks awesome. And for the master, one last thing here to note. I am still using a standard Honda Metropolitan like throttle. It's either Metropolitan or Spree. And you can see here that I actually cut or ground off the lever off of the original throttle assembly, because usually the lever mount is built into that whole thing. So I just cut it and ground it down. Doesn't look half bad in my opinion. Anyways, so here I am, just bleeding it forever. But it eventually took, and I couldn't be happier. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.